Why is it not working?
Yeah, okay, very good. I just did the red.
Okay, yesterday I got stuck because but this is about what is it, 10 lines there by so come and let me know commission in the sugya previous brought local mishal. We had this is blocking over here. Okay, that's good. That Mishnah, we had a kasha that our Mishnah says is kanas by Chavi Krisus, and the Mishnah said that that all Chavi Krisus are also Chavi Malchus and Ein Local Mishalim. How do you do Mishnah? It's not going to say there's also kanas and also Malchus. Ein Local Mishalim. Then we had a couple of tibutzim. Mishlok was according to a mayor. He argues on the whole principle. He says it's possible to get punishments, local mishal. But the more the problem according to him, because he seems not to hold of kam levid rabbin even by chiv misa. That even if there's a mesu mishalim, that the Mishnah later on says that if he had relations with a daughter, somebody that's going to be chiv misa's business, and then there's kam levid rabbin. And Rav Meir seems to not hold like that because there was a Mishnah of Brisa that said if gun of a if somebody stole and slaughtered somebody else's animal, somebody else slaughtered it on Shabbos, so it should become lebid rabbi that since tvicha by slaughtering it is chayiv misas besdin is chayiv misa for chil Shabbos, so there's no payment of the daled v'hei, and Rabbi says there is. So that was the most issue that how could he say Rabbi about an Amish to say local mishalim? He also should say meis mishalim, and Amish says not. It's more as kasha. Rabba over there the more brought down two terutzim how to explain the case of Ganav v'Tabach v'Shabbos. The reason why Rabbi might say chayiv. One was Tabech al de'achad, as Rabbi Yochanan, somebody else did it. He told the shochet to shech. And Rabbi said that even though he also called David Rabbi Minay, but that doesn't cover a knas. Even though there's a p'tur called David Rabbi Minay, if someone incurs upon himself a death penalty together with a monetary payment, there's putter for the payment. But if it was a monetary penalty, a penalty knas, like Dalit Vei is a knas, is a fine, a penalty. So then there's no p'tur called David Rabbi Minay. So we're holding our breath since then a long time because the teres doesn't make sense. Because our Mishnah is also talking about a knas. You come to explain our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that if had relations with a daughter, Ito, so there is a p'tur called David Rabbi Minay. And you just finished saying goes according to Rav Meir, and you said in the same breath Rav Meir holds that you don't say kam levid Rav Meir on a penalty, and that's the reason why Ganav v'Tavach there's no p'tur because the Dalet Vei is a penalty, and there's no p'tur kam levid Rav Meir on a penalty. So answer the kasha. We're holding on this for 2 days already, and now we're going to find out that the whole thing was a mistake. So our understanding was a mistake. The Rabbi said that the fact that the Torah says you have to pay a penalty as a knas, every knas is a chiddush that the Torah says, even though it's not a regular payment, it's not that he owes the money, but there's a penalty. And a penalty, even if he gets killed, Afgav the Miktal still has to pay. It means there's no Torah on a penalty. So then, how do you get to the Mishnah? How does he going to explain our Mishnah? Ikra Meir, Kasha Bito. That was really where we're holding the whole time, that you're saying the Mishnah is Rav Meir, and that's why local Mishalim, but then be Meis Mishalim. Truly not. Usually not Meis Mishalim, but there's Meis Mishalim. There's a come with Rabbi Minay. In the case of Bito, Bito means that he's in relations with his daughter, and this should not be a p'tor of come with Rabbi Minay according to Rabbi Meir. If you say Rabbi Meir holds that on a penalty, so the Mishnah doesn't make sense. The Gemara throws in another thing over here, two more things that really we didn't talk about, and we'll see soon why the just put in parentheses right now. The Gemara brings in two other opinions that we had mention of one of them. But Mechoni ben Akana is the one who says that there's a p'tor of kamle b'drabi minei even on chiv krisus. We hold that only chiv misas bezdin, but a chiv krisus is not a p'tor. Just somebody did malach on Yom Kippur, he was massacring somebody on Yom Kippur. So since Yom Kippur is only chayiv koros, there's no, and he would hold that Krisos also is a p'tor kamle b'drabi against our Mishnah. So kasha choso means that you can't say our Mishnah is mechoni ben Akana. Here l'chor there's nothing that you have gained. No reason why mechoni ben would have helped our, but the Marsh is throwing in that it can't be a mechoni ben Akana surely because kasha Mishnah says that if someone has relations with us, he does have to pay the knas because it's only chayv krisos. From the Chayim Ben Akana would argue with that because he holds that there's b'tov kam levid rabbi minei even on chayv krisos also. So the Mishnah Shol can't be able to. It's not clear what they wanted because it doesn't help anything. It's just making it more difficult. But maybe there was some gain, local mishalim. But the Gemara says it can't be. Shol can't be able to. Ikra of Yitzchak Kashem. So this is very interesting how the Gemara expects Yitzchak. It didn't mention it. Adam and Asra, they warned them to Chayv Malchus, but the Chayv Krisos is not Chayv Malchus. We hold the Elam and Alok and the all Chayv Krisos, they are Chayv Malchus if they got Adam and Asra, and Rabbi Yitzchak holds not. So you might say that according to Rabbi Yitzchak, it might help out that even though there's the kasha was Amish says there's a knas and Chayv Krisos, and the Mishnah Malchus says that they get Malchus. So these two things that contradict because in local mishalim, how could you have both Mishnahs being true that he gets Malchus and he's Chayiv Malchus. I'm sorry, he's Chayiv Chorus, he's Chayiv Knas, and he's Chayiv Malchus. And we know Ein Lokum Mishalim. How do you reconcile everything? So Yitzchak would be a way out because he holds that there is no. He doesn't hold the Elohim Alokim. He doesn't hold that Chayiv Krisos is Chayiv Malchus. So that would explain how, even though Ein Lokum Mishalim is not a kasha, our Mishnah is good. The reason, even though Chayiv Krisos do have to pay knas, and there's no kasha in local mishalim because he holds that there is no malchus. He holds that chayv krisos are not chayv malchus, but still kasha mamzeres means an interesting point that we should have realized when we learned the Gemara. The whole fancy kasha the Gemara asked in the beginning that how could you reconcile our Mishnah that says chayv krisos is chayv knas, chayv krisos are chayv malchus and in local mishalim. That's a fancy way of asking a simple kasha. The Gemara could have gone to the first case of Amzeres by Chayv Lavin. You don't have to bring like backwards to say Chayv. I says now Mishnah Chayv Krisos. Unless another Mishnah says that all Chayv Krisos are Chayv Malchus and in Local Mishalim. Just go straight to the first part of the Mishnah. There's Chayv Lavin. Chayv Lavin is surely Chayv Malchus, and it says that Chayv Lavin pay knas. Why should they pay knas? They ain't Local Mishalim. If you're going to the Chayv Malchus, Chayv Lavin is surely Chayv Malchus. No, Bissa doesn't argue on that either. And the Gemara could have asked the kasha simply before, and that's what the Gemara says over here. Ikra Yitzchak kasha mamzeres. It's not going to help to say that our Mishnah goes according to Yitzchak that holds that chayve krisos are not chayv malchus because chayve lavan are surely chayv malchus. So the Gemara is really back to the original kasha we just finished asking. That Ikra Meir kasha bito, the whole terrace that we brought in that Rabbi says that there's no tov kamle b'di Rabbi according to Rabbi Meir by a penalty by a knas. That was by Tavach Macha. That's what he's gaining over there. But it doesn't help our Mishnah because our Mishnah says there is a Ptor of Kam Levid Rabbi Minei even by a Knas because he was talking about Bito. He had relations with his daughter. And the Mishnah says that there is no penalty of the Knas because Kam Levid Rabbi Minei. And Rabbi Meir doesn't fit with that because Rabbi Meir says there would be because he holds that there's no Ptor of Kam Levid Rabbi Minei on a penalty. So that's what the Gemara is going to say. That Rabbi never came to answer our mission in the first place. It means we've been holding our breath for 2 days from a mistake. We thought that when the Gemara went in Rabbi was coming to answer our Mishnah, and it doesn't make sense. He says that Rabbi Meir doesn't know that come with Rabbi Minei on a penalty. That's by Tavach Macha. So finish the sentence. How about by us? Our case is also a case of a knas. So the answer is he never really meant to go on our Mishnah. He's going on the Gemara alone of come with Rabbi Minei, which the Gemara quoted over there at the Tavach Macha b'Shabbos. Whatever Gemara is. He wasn't talking about our Mishnah at all. Of course, it doesn't answer our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is also a knas. So the Gemara is going to say he has to hold of the other Terutzim to explain our Mishnah. Just to zoom out a second before we see it inside, we started the sugya that our Mishnah says that there's a knas by Chayvi Krisos, and the Mishnah says in Malchus Elohim Alokim it says Chayvi Krisos, and we know Ein Lokum Mishalim. We answered this 3 Terutzim. One teretz was Ula, one teretz was Rabbi Yochanan, one teretz was Rish Lakish. Ula said that Ein Lokum Mishalim you only pay money, and our Mishnah is good, and the Mishnah Malchus is talking about where there's no knas. Bulgaria, Shota, all kinds of Mefuta, all kinds of cases where there's no knas. But Ein Lokum Mishalim. Rabbi Yochanan said that Ein Lokum Mishalim, what do? You just get Malchus. And our Mishnah is talking about where there's no Asra, and therefore there's no Malchus. And those 2 Terutzim are the way to answer our Mishnahs. Rish Lakish came with a third teretz to say it's Rabbi Meir. But we thought that the teretz of Rabba is going to explain our Mishnah. He didn't mean to do that. Rabba is going to take the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that lo hisrubo, that there was no asra, and we said yesterday that he holds that even though chayve misha shogin beturin, but chayve malchus shogin is es chayamin, and that's how he's going to explain our Mishnah. The reason why in our Mishnah the there's even though there's a knas, and the Mishnah over there says that there's malchus. Our Mishnah is talking about a case, but there's no malchus because they didn't get asra. Eli savalak Rish Lakish shechim etarzla. Rish Lakish it holds that chayve malchus shogigin peturin. So then he can't answer Rabbi Yochanan's teretz either. Al kocha savalak as Rabbi Yochanan's fiolei. That's the end of the Gemara. So we made a mistake the whole time. We thought that Rab was coming to explain our Mishnah. He's not coming to explain our Mishnah. He just was chanting Rav Meir that even though Rav Meir agrees to come with Rabbi Minei, he doesn't say by penalty. But it surely can't be our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that you do say come Rabbi Minei on a penalty also. So back to our Mishnah, how do you answer our Mishnah? You have to have the two other Tibbutzim, either Ula or Birchanan. The Gemara brings down a Birchanan. The Chari could also hold like Ula also. Ula said that Ein Loka Mishalim means that you only pay the money. That's found in our Mishnah. And the Mishnah Makas, which we talk about a case where there's no monetary payment for whatever reason it was Bulgaris, as the Gemara said earlier. All these Gemaras are very, very involved. The Gemara is bringing everything together the past 4 pages as if we able to juggle all of them together. It's not an easy sugya because there are so many details that it's hard to juggle all of them. But that's what the Gemara was doing now. The Gemara has another point back to what we spoke about before. This is yesterday's sugya. We spoke about that everybody holds chayv misha shogim peturin. That if somebody did something which would be chayv misha's bezdin, but he did it by mistake, like say he killed by mistake, in machal shabbos by mistake, and we're not going to actually kill him. So that was everybody holds still there's a ptur kamlei b'drabi minei. We said yesterday the terminology we used yesterday. It doesn't have to be a capital punishment. It has to be a capital crime. That even though he's not going to get punished lamaisa, but it was a crime. It was an aver which would be chayv misha if he did it intentionally. So then he's put there from the monetary payment, even though he's not going to get killed. And then there was machlokas about malchus also, and Rish Lakish said over there also, the chayv malchus also says the same thing, and chayv malchus shogim peturin, that just like ein loka mishalem, even if he's not actually going to get the malchus, he did a issa malchus, but he didn't get asra, so he's not actually going to get lashes. Still, there's a ptur of kamlei b'drabi minei. So what does he say? The Rish Lakish that says that there's a ptur of chayv malchus, ein loka mishalem, even if he did not actually get the malchus. How are we going to find anybody that's going to argue on Nechune ben Akana? What does that mean? Nechune ben Akana says that chayv krisus is kamlei b'drabi minei. Not only chayv misas bezdin, also chayv krisus is kamlei b'drabi minei. And we argue on him and we say no, that chayv krisus there is no ptur of kamlei b'drabi minei, only chayv misas bezdin. But the Gemara is bringing out a point now that but every chayv krisus is also chayv malchus. And chayv malchus, we do hold ein loka mishalim. Means, forget about the krisis part. It happens to be that a chayv krisis is also chayv malchus, and everybody holds ein loka mishalim. And the Shloksh is saying that even if he did it, even though his shubo, even if it would be without asra, also there's a ptur of kamlei b'drab of ein loka mishalim. So how can anybody say that chayv krisis, the case of Yom Kippur, let's say, he burnt down somebody's barn on Yom Kippur. So we say there's no ptur of kamlei b'drab minei. Why not? It should be a ptur, not because of the chayv krisis, but because of the malchus part. Every chayv krisis in Kippur is also going to be chayv malchus. Even if it's not going to be chayv malchus because it was shogeg, nobody no history will. But still, we're saying now according to Rish Lakish, chayv malchus shogin peturin. So who's going to argue on it with Nechune ben Akana? Even though the krisis part is not going to be enough reason to pater, but the malchus part, every krisis is also malchus, and the malchus is going to pater the money, even if there was no malchus actually because it was lo history will. So the Gemara says, either Meir, either Yitzchak, 2 choices. Either like a Meir that says loka mishalim, means the kasha would be a nice kasha. If you hold ein loka mishalim, then every chayv krisis is always going to be chayv malchus, and he's not going to have to pay because of the malchus. But a Meir holds loka mishalim. He holds that you come to be rabbi min on a chiv misa, but not on a chiv malchus. Chiv malchus is not a reason not to pay. And now we're saying chimisa only means misa, doesn't mean kares. That's one tersai could answer. Or Bitzchak we just mentioned a couple of lines ago that he doesn't hold of that every chayv krisis is chayv malchus. But the Gemara is masking to the cheshbon that if a chayv krisis is going to be chayv malchus and ein loka mishalim, so every time that someone's chayv kares and money, he's going to be potter not because of the kares, he'll be potter because of the malchus. According to Rish Lakish that holds that even chayv malchus shogin peturin. So the Gemara makes this cheshbon to find how it's possible to you have to pay the monetary payment even when he did a chayv krisis. That's been a cruise for about a 4-day cruise we just came on about kamlei b'drabi minei loka mishalim. It's all off Kesuvos. Like, there wasn't really the subject of Kesuvos. We started off the parak about there's a din of onus and mafata. They have to pay 50 pieces of the silver, and we'll get more into the actual subject. And agav it came about chayv lavin, chayv krisis. If you had relations with somebody, would be a mamzeres, somebody that's a usher. because of Allah or because of chorus that there still is going to be a payment, but the next Mishnah says by Bito, something which is Chayv Mises Bez, and then there's no payment. So we got off to the subject and we went on a cruise about these subjects about local Mishalim and about Kamli Bidrabimine. And the cruise comes to an end over here. And now we go back onto the subject of Onus Mafata. The Onus Mafata is also a cruise because we're in Kesuvos. Kesuvos doesn't have to do the Onus Mafata dafka. The whole parak is side point. So we go back to the subject, and the Bryce here is going to talk about 4 or more cases that there's no din of knas. Knas again means the 50 chamishim kesef that he has to pay someone a rape. That's called ones, or seduced. That's called pitoy. So Tana Rabbanan, I try to highlight it as we go along. Arayos or shnios la arayos, ein lahem knas lo pitoy, and hamama enes ein la lo knas lo pitoy, and islanders ein la lo knas lo pitoy, and ayos es mishum shema ein la lo knas lo pitoy. The Brisa says 4 women that are not eligible for the knas. The knas of knas here is like a onus. Both of them are knas. Pitoy is also a knas. Tais points out that the lashon is a little interesting that it says knas and pitoy. The pitoy is also a knas. But here the knas means an onus. Onus means an onus. There's no payment for an onus or a mafata, for a rape or for seduction for these 4 women. The first one is 2. I said 4. The first case is arayis and shnias l'arayis. Usually arayis means a woman that's it's an illicit relationship on a chayv mises bezan level. That's usually what arayis means. And shnias or chayv krisis also maybe is considered arayis. And shnias usually means drabanan. It's a rabbinic. The rabbinic enactment that they said they're not allowed to have relations with this woman also. We said the cases over there about aim emo, things like that, that not all, it's a little bit extending the relationships that you're not allowed to marry. A person's related is not allowed to marry relatives. And the Rabbanan added on a few more generations, even though it's only us to marry his mother, but a grandmother will be mutter. So that's an example of a shnia. And there are different shnios. We had the list in the beginning of the Masechta, of Masechta Yavamis. So the Pasuk of the words would mean shnias l'rais. That's what it always means in the Shas. Shnias l'rais means Rabbanan. I think Gemara's going to have difficulty with that, but that's the first one that it says that if he had relations with a woman who's an erva or shnia, so there's no knas. The second case is Mama Enes. Mama Enes means a woman that was a ketana. She didn't have a father and a brother, mother, or herself. They got married. That's only called a marriage with Rabbanan. And we said the halacha we had read in Yavamis that she's allowed to leave whenever she wants to. She just says, "I refuse. I don't want to continue." She doesn't need a get. The whole thing is absolved retroactively, and she also is not eligible if somebody was ma'anis her or mafata her subsequently. So she's not eligible for the knas. The pasuk shad is because she's considered a bu'ul. She's b'cheskas bula, married, even though it's a marriage rabbanan, but it's assumed that they had relations, and therefore she's not a basula. One of the conditions in order to be eligible for the knas is that she was a virgin when she was raped or seduced, and she's not considered a basula. The fact that she was married, even though it's a marriage with rabbanan, and she refused and she went out of it, she absolved the whole thing. But when she was in a marriage with this man, so she's assumed to have been bu'ula, and therefore now somebody raped her subsequently is considered that there's no knas because she probably was a bu'ula before that. The third case is islandess. Islandess means that she didn't bring simanim of maturity, that she didn't become physically mature, and the halacha is she's considered a ketana until a certain age, till she brings simanim that she's an islandess. There's certain simanim that shows that she's sterile. I forgot the word that Dr. Feiner said once upon a time, and therefore she's considered a ketana. And the Gemara is going to talk about Ketana doesn't have Knas. That's our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, Elo now Sheshlan Knas. Right away, the Gemara brought down the Machlokas Ramein Rabbanan. Rabbi Meir says, Davka Nara is between 12 and 12 and a half, but not a Ketana, not a Bogeres. Younger or older doesn't not eligible to Knas. The Rabbanan over there argue and say that a Ketana does get Knas. And this Brisa seems to say, like a mayor, that a Ketana doesn't have Knas. And therefore, I'm going to say, like Knas for Peter, because she's considered a Ketana. Even though she's already 12, 13, 14, she's still considered a Ketana, and therefore she's not eligible to Knas. And the last thing, yes, please.
In those cases, there's no ketubah.
What do you mean there's no ketubah? What would it mean?
They got married, right?
No, here the case was that she was raped. The case here is, the whole case is talking about knas of onus and mafata, that a man raped her, so this usually is a penalty to pay. And here it's saying she's not eligible for the penalty because she's not considered a nara, she's considered a ketana. A nara is an adult from age 12 to 12 and a half. After that, she's considered a Bulgaris. So here, the case of Mama Enes was that there was a kind of a marriage before she was raped. And that marriage makes her now that she's not considered a virgin anymore. And that marriage over there by Mama Enes, I forgot over there if there's ksuba. I forgot, we had it. We learned it in Yavamis if a ketana gets ksuba. I forgot right now. But here the question is that since she was already in a marriage state, she's considered becheskas be'ula, that she's not a basula anymore, she's not a virgin anymore, and therefore if somebody raped her or seduced her afterwards, she's not eligible to kanas because she's a bula, not a basula. And the last case of the brisa was a Yosef Mishum Shemra. So the simple words don't make sense. The Gemara is going to right away jump on it. That Yosef Mishum Shemra usually means that a person got married, and then he says that I had relations with her, and she's a bula, and she might even have the relations while we were in an Eris state. Maybe she's chayiv skila. And the point is that she got married, and therefore she's definitely a bula or becheskas bula. So that the Gemara is going to say that that's pashut, that she's not going to get kanas and pita because she was married already. And that's what he said. He said he had relations and he didn't find any dam. So she surely, maybe she's bullied even before that marriage. But that seems to be good, without saying that of course she doesn't get kanas if someone raped her. So that's going to be the Gemara's kasha on this last one. All four of them, it says there's no kanas and no pita. There's no kanas for ones or mufata. The first one was arayis and shnias l'arayis, which we said that arayis makes sense, but shnias l'arayis doesn't make sense yet. And mama enes, we said the reason is because she's not considered a basula. Islandess is considered a ktana. And Yosef Mishum Shemra, l'chor for sure that she's considered a bula. So all these need explanation. So the Gemara starts off with the first one, and the Gemara is going to analyze each one. Here goes the first. My arayis and my shnias l'arayis. What does the first thing mean when it says that arayis and shnias l'arayis are not eligible for kanas and pitoy? What are we talking about? So the usual terminology would mean, as the Gemara says, ilema arayis mamish, and shnias means b'divrei sofrim. That's the usual terminology. Arayis means on a deraisa level, actual arayis, and shnias means the rabbanon level, b'divrei sofrim. But the Gemara says that can't be. How could he say that if it's a erva which is only on the rabbanon level, that she's not eligible for knas? That the whole issue seems to be revolving around. It says velosi yeli isha. This the Gemara is going to say soon. We had the sugi before that said that maybe the Amish says even chayvi lav and chayvi krisis there is knas, even though it's not fitting with the Raisa to be a wife, but we'll see soon that we saw already not everybody agrees to that. And the Gemara is asking as far as how much is she fitting to be a wife? It says he's supposed to marry her, and even if he doesn't actually marry her, is he called fitting to marriage? So the Gemara is asking on the Raisa level he's allowed to marry her. With the Raisa is allowed to marry her. So why should she be excluded from the dinner of Knas? Why should it be that Rabbanan says he's not allowed to marry her? It's not a reason to take away Knas. So that's the Gemara's kasha. So the Gemara is going to change that here. The word shnios is different than all over. The word shnios always means, that's the terminology all over Shas, that shnios means the next level of erva. That's only with Rabbanan. And here it's not going to mean that. Ella rais chayve Mrs. Bezdin, shnios chayve krisis. That's to try to highlight that. The Gemara answers that shnios doesn't mean regular medivis. So shnios means chayve krisis. It means a level down. Shniya says the word shniya just means like a level down, the next level. So usually the next level means Rabbanan level. Here the Gemara is saying though that arayis meant chayv Mrs. Bezdin, that is something which is capital punishment. And shniya means the level down. What's the level down? That it's not chayv Mrs. Bezdin. Bezdin doesn't kill, but chayv krisis, that is considered, it's also the Raisa, and it's even chayv misa. Chayv misa on a heavenly death. So those are not eligible to Knas, and it's also against our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says the Chayvi Krisis is also eligible, which we have the subject, we have the sugi in the beginning of the parak, that our Mishnah is Chayvi Lav and Chayvi Krisis, both of them, even though it says Velosi Elisha, they're supposed to marry her, but there's a pasuk to say, Nara, Basula, Basula, Basula. We had a bunch of drushes to say that even Chayvi Lav and Chayvi Krisis also are eligible for Knas. But we saw that others argue, and this Bryce is going to argue, and our Mishnah is going to say that Chayvi Krisis are not eligible for Knas. We had before this, it says on the side where we had this, over there it said, there was an opinion that argued on our Mishnah, said Chayvi Krisis are not eligible for Knas, even though our Mishnah says they are. But he argues, and Shimon HaTimni argued, and the more said before what they're arguing, and how they do the psukim over there. But this Bryce holds like Shimon HaTimni that Chayvi Krisis are not eligible for Knas. But surely Rabbanan is. The Shniyas that are called Midivei Sofrim surely are eligible for Knas. There's another way to answer the Bryce. That Ikadam Yarai is Chayvi Mrs. Bezdin, Chayvi Krisis, and Shniyas means Chayvi Lavin. That's the next terrace over here. We also can highlight that. But some say that Shniyas means Chayvi Lavin. Here we're going to say that the word arise includes both kind of death penalties, either earthly bezdin or heavenly bezdin, which means chayv Mrs. Bezdin and chayv krisis are all included in arayis. And what a shnius means, a level down. What's a level down? Not rabbanan, but chayv lavin. And that says that chayv lavin are eligible for knas, but chayv are are not eligible for knas. And that also was an opinion. Mani of Shimon ben Menashe that it says that before on that same daf of test over there it said that in order to be he holds in order to be eligible for knas, it has to be someone that is mutter to marry. So it's all against our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that Chavi Lavin are eligible, Chavi Krisis are eligible, only Chavi Mrs. Bez are not, because Kamle B'Dravi Minei. But these are Tanaim argue. We have both of these sheetas already. Some hold Chavi Lavin is not eligible. Some say Chavi Lavin are, but Chavi Krisis is not. And this Bryce is going to be one of those two opinions. But what do we get out of our Gemara? That Chavi that Shneis B'Divrei Sofrim, that the Gemara doesn't tolerate. It can't be B'Divrei Sofrim. If it's only Erev Rabbanan, then surely that's considered below CL Isha. Nobody argues, and over there she is eligible for Knas. The next Gemara is interesting cheshbonas that the Gemara makes. What do we say about this? About Mema Enes. This goes on the second part of the Brisa. Just to scroll back a second. This was the second thing in the Brisa that said Mema Enes does not get Knas and Pitoy. We finished the first case. Case number one was about Arais or Shneas Arais. We said Shneas is not means Rabbanan. It means either Lavin or it means Chavi Krisos. That the Brisa could argue, but no one's going to say that Shneos is Rabbanan. The next case, Mema Enes. So the Gemara's issue about Mema Enes is really just to, we said Mema Enes is probably a bula, the fact that she was living with somebody as a marriage, even though it's Rabbanan, but probably they had relations. So that's why she's not considered a virgin and there's no knas if someone raped her or mefata. So the Gemara is the dig over here. Every Mema Enes is always a ketana, means who's eligible to have such kind of a marriage? Only a ketana before she's bas mitzvah. After that, it has to be regular marriage, it's the Raisa marriage. But a ketana, when she's still a minor, so then if the father marries her off, then it's considered kedushin deraisa. But if not, if the father's not around, she's a soma, she's an orphan, so then the mother, the brother, they could marry her off. And that's what it said, that if she got married to such a marriage, she had such a marriage, so then she's considered the cheskas that she was nival, and they had relations, and therefore, if subsequently after she was mamamayim, somebody was onus of mafata, so there's no knas and pita. But what does the Gemara want to be medayik? We're talking about a girl who's a minor. That's the case that every mamanis is a minor. So we could be medayik. We could infer from here hakatana balma isla. The only reason why she doesn't get knas is only because she's a mamanis and she's becheskas that she was nival. But if it would have been a ketana without any mamanis storage time, she was a minor. Mashma, she would get knas, because the only reason why the Brisa says she doesn't get knas is because she was mamanis. 1 second, please. So the Brisa that says mamanis doesn't have knas, we could be medayik that only because she was mamanis. She had a marriage and then she absolved the marriage, but if it would have been she's a ketana. By definition, a mamanis has to be a ketana. So if so the Brisa is meduyik that it holds that a ketana would get knas. Now we know from the beginning of the practice machlok is about this. Rav Meir says that only a nara, elu nara sheishlam knas, only a nara, which means between 12 and 12 and a half, but a ketana not and a bogeres not. We said the Rabbanan argue say that ketana also is eligible. But if this Brisa says mamanis doesn't get knas, and we know that a mamanis is the ketana, we could infer from that ketana b'alma isla. Every regular ketana is eligible for knas. That's a simple deal. You might argue on the deal just to point out a kasha that Machabus asked that it could be that she was Mama Enes, but now she's already 12, 13, 14. This was since once upon a time she was Mama Enes, she's already married. But the Gemara seems to look at it that she's still in the state of a ketana. If it says Mama Enes doesn't get knas, we could be medak that a regular ketana would get knas. According to that, mani, Rabbanani, dami ketana yesh lo knas. So far, this part of the Brisa is muchach that the Rabbanan are talking that ketana is eligible for knas, because if it be a mayor, every ketana doesn't get knas, not only mamanis, any ketana doesn't get knas. Okay, that's the dik in the Reisha, that this Brisa holds like the Rabbanan, that a ketana is eligible for knas. But Ema Sefer, the next case in the Brisa says, Islandess Ema, lo knas lo pitoy. That was case number 3 in the Brisa, that an islandess also does not get knas. Why not? What's wrong with islandess? The Gemara only ceases because she's considered a ketana, even if she's already 13, 14, 15, but she didn't bring pubic maturity, so she's a ketana. But that means that the ketana is a reason not to get knas. This is the subject we're talking about. I guess knas. So the first case of a Enes sounds like the Rabbanan are talking. The case of islandess that says it doesn't get knas sounds like a mayor. And this girl who's an islandess, she jumped from katana to a bogeres. There's no stage in between of a nara. Islandess, either she's an islandess and she's a ketana. When she does get the simon islandess, then she's a bogeres. But there's no stage of a nara. So Reisha Rabbanan Sefer Meir, how can you learn the Brisa? The Brisa says mamanis doesn't get knas, which is mashma that a ketana would get knas, and then it says Ailinus doesn't get knas because she's a ketana. Is that a reason not to get knas? Beisha Rabbanan of Sefer Meir. That's the kasha. That the brisa is not consistent. What does it hold about a ketana? The answer is going to be, the word already gives us the answer. It's going to have something to do with the fact that it's not so simple that only a ketana has the ability to do miyan. We always, Nivamus, we said that till when could there be a marriage with Rabbanan? Until when could she absolve the marriage? As long as she's a ketana. Once she becomes a gedola, she can't be mine anymore. She can't be refused because she's already a gedola. It's a good marriage. So that's not so simple. The thing we said the whole time that only a ketana could be mamaenes is not so simple. As Rabbi argues and says that she could be mamain even after she brings 2 hairs, even after she's an official gedola, until yarba shocha. We'll see right away. For Tanya, we'll see 2 hairs says that means there's a lot of hairs. Yarba shocha means that there's a lot of hairs in the pubic area. Here it goes like this. The answer that the chitei mekula meir would be able to try to suggest that the whole knas, and that's the reason why Ailinus doesn't get knas, because she's a ketana. And the case of a ma'enes, we thought that by ma'enes definition means she's a ketana, and only because she's a ma'enes, but a ketana would get knas. No, that dig is not a good dig, because it could be a goes according to Yehuda that holds that even a knara is also allowed to be ma'ayin. Like he says that even after she brought 2 hairs, she still could be ma'ayin until she's yer ba'ashach, until there's a lot of black hairs. So that would be a potential answer. But we then would have to get together that the mayor holds like a Yehuda, or Yehuda holds like a mayor. That's the more is going to try to work out. If we will try to say that Rav Meir is the one who's talking over here, that a ketana does not get knas, but he holds that a mamanis could be a gedol, like Rav Yehuda says. But Rav says not true. We know that he doesn't hold like him. Does he hold like Rav Yehuda that even a gedol or nara is also allowed to be mamayin? But Tanya must have bas mamanis. Asher Tavich Teisar is Divra Meir. Rav Yehuda Mashi Abba Shach Alalavan. This is Machlokes. Mamash Rav Yehuda. Rav Meir doesn't know that. Rav Meir holds that she only can do miyan until she brings 2 hairs, which means only while she's a ketana. When she's an nara, she can't do miyan anymore. Rav Yehuda is the one who says Achi Abba Shach until there's more black hairs than the white skin. Means that when you look at the pubic area, you see black. That's considered she's already advanced maturity. But anyway, Rav Meir doesn't hold that. So according to Rav Meir, if she's a gedola, she's not eligible for a miyun. That says that a mamaenes doesn't get knas, that by definition could infer that it means that a ketana would get knas. But if holds that a ketana doesn't get knas, so we'll try the other way. Not that the mayor holds like a Yehuda, but the Yehuda is talking and he holds like a mayor. Well, the ketana is like a mayor. Maybe we can say that what if this price is a Yehuda that says that a nara is also allowed to do miyun, and he holds that a ketana does not get knas. And that's how the reason the Ailinus doesn't get knas. But that's also not true. Does Rabbi Yehuda hold like a mayor by ketana that ketana is not eligible for knas? Rabbi Yehuda, Rav, Zudi Rav Meir. When we get to the sugya later on, where it talks about this halacha, does a ketana get knas or not? So it says Rav said Rav Meir holds like that. Rav Meir is the man that says that ketana doesn't get knas. The Misa, if it's true, Rav Yehuda also agrees to him. Zudi Rav Meir, Rav Yehuda, he should have said Rav Yehuda also agrees to him that a ketana doesn't get knas. It seems that Rav knew that only Rav Meir holds that a ketana doesn't get knas, but Rav Yehuda doesn't hold to that. So Rav Meir doesn't hold like Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda doesn't hold like Rav Meir. We're trying to get the answer to this brayso. So the only way out we see is that there's one Tana that holds both of these things. One Tana that holds that ketana does not get knas, and the same Tana also holds that Mamaenes could do miyun even when she's a gedola in order to make sense of the brayso. Who's that? It's not Rav Meir. It's not Rav Yehuda. So the Gemara says there's somebody else. There's some Tana that holds a mix and match. He holds like a mayor that a ketana doesn't get knas. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda that ma'anis could do miyan even after she's a nara. That's the Gemara's answer. It's a new Tana. We don't know who he is. We don't have a name. But there's somebody that holds as far as the halacha of ketana getting knas. He holds like a mayor shita that a ketana doesn't get knas. To unrelated dinim. And the other one he holds that a girl could do miyan even after she's a nara. So that will be shot in the brayso. Another try to answer the kasha that mamanis doesn't mean that she did miyun and she's cheskas beula, and the diak is going to be only because she went through miyun. But if she would have been a regular ketana, she would have gotten knas. Don't explain like that. The mamanis just means that she's of the age possible to do miyun, which is another way of saying tana. My mamanis, what does the word mamanis mean? So that she's still a ketana, and that's all the words mean. It's not a way of saying ketana does not get knas. But it should say so. Well, this Niktana, why not say so? Why is it so fancy? Same in Ma'enes, which means Ruya Lemi, and it means a Ktana. If that's all it meant, it should have said Ktana. Kasha, so that pshat is difficult. So the more seems to go back to the first pshat, that this Brisa that said that Ma'enes does not get Knas, just to scroll back again to the Brisa. Ma'enes ain't lo Knas. The Gemara says the pshat is because she actually did miyun, and she's becheskas beula. That's the reason why she doesn't get Knas. The diak is if she would have been a regular Ktana. No, you can't say that. Because the islandess says doesn't get knas because she's considered a ktana. This brisa holds like Rav Meir that a ktana does not get knas. And back to Ma'enes, the kasha was that why say she doesn't get knas because she's a Ma'enes. Even if she wouldn't have been Ma'enes, if she's a ktana, she wouldn't get knas according to this brisa. So you must say this brisa holds Ma'enes even though she could do me, and even after she's a nara, she is already a gedola, and still she would get knas. But since she was Ma'enes, she's becheskas bula. And now we have, I think, what else we have left for this brisa? Now we go on to the next one about an islandess. This is case number 3. Islandess saying Knas lo pitoi. And we said the reason is because she's considered a Ktana. And this brisa holds a Ktana doesn't get Knas. We're a mini, a kasha from a brisa. The brisa says, let's try to Achareshes v'ashota v'ha'islandess. Yesh lein Knas. So this brisa said, the first brisa we had by us said, islandess ain't lo Knas lo pitoi. And the kasha from a brisa that says that islandess, yesh la knas. That's the stira. And the first in our brisa we quoted that the islandess does not get knas. The reason because she's a ktana. Another brisa says that the islandess does have knas. Now that shouldn't bother us so much. I think I was going to say because we said the whole reason why islandess should not get knas is because she's considered a ktana, and ktana is a machlokas if ktana gets knas or not. So that's what the Gemara is going to say right away. No big kasha. Of course, it's not a contradiction. We know there's a machlokas if a ktana gets knas, and islandess is another way of saying knas. But anyway, what does the Gemara ask? Islandess saying the knas for the people like Reminu. It says here achareshes v'ashota. Other information comes in also. Achareshes and ashota and islandess, all of them do get knas. And also yeshlan tanis basula. Tanis basula means that if a person married her and said, "I thought that she's a basula," and then he sees that she's not a basula, is that considered a taina? Could he say that I didn't marry her under such conditions? I don't want to give the ksuba of 200 because I thought that she was a basula. So yeshlan tanis basula, that they're expected to be basula. If they weren't, it wasn't told differently. Even though she's a chareshes and she doesn't have seichel, and even though she's a shota, she doesn't have seichel, she's still expected to be a basula. And if not, then you can say, I didn't mean this. I didn't mean to marry a woman who's not to give a ksuba to someone who's not a basula. So we'll get to that. The Gemara's going to open up a window about that also. But so far, we're just interested in the islandess part. Here it says the islandess is eligible to knas, and also tanis basula. No reason why she shouldn't be a basula. And the brisa bayah says islandess doesn't get the knas. So that's the Gemara's kasha. So the Gemara jumps up. What's the kasha? V'hai my rumi. What kind of kasha is that? No kasha. We had machlokas if a ktana is eligible for knas, and that's what the two brises are arguing about. The first brise holds that an islandess is a ktana doesn't get knas like a mayor. The other brise says islandess is knas because Rabbanan know that a ktana does get knas. No kasha. And the Gemara says that the answer is such a good kasha, such a good answer that the kasha doesn't make sense. The one who asked the kasha, what was his kasha? That he doesn't know there's machlokas between Rabbanan and Rabbanan if a ktana gets knas or not. The answer is you're right. This kasha wasn't a kasha. He had another kasha in mind. They got mixed up. We got confused what the kasha was. There's a different problem with this brisa. This is a different problem. And now we're going to go into the different problem. Here it says in this brisa, Hachareshes, we had Chareshes over here, and a Shota, Hachareshes Vashota Babogeris. Here doesn't say islandess even. It doesn't say islandess in this brisa, in this part. Here it says Eilan Tanis Basulam. That's going to be what the Gemara is going to talk about. Maybe we can underline that over here. In this brisa it said Hachareshes Vashota. It says Zeishlan Tanis Basulam. Really, it says the whole thing. It says Chareshes Vashota Vailan Zeishlan Tanis. I'm just underlining, just highlighting what we're looking for. Here it says in this brisa that a Chareshes and a Shota Yeishlan Tanis Basulam. Someone got married to a Chareshes and Shota, and he sees she's not a virgin. He says, "What's this? I expected a." So yes, it's a good time. He expected a Basula. This brisa says, on the other hand, a Chareshes Vashota and also Bogeres Mukaseitz Eilan Tanis Basulam. That's the contradiction over here. Here it says if he married a Chareshes and a Shota, and then he says she's not a Basula, no problem. You should have known she's not a Basula for some reason. We'll talk about other things also soon. The brisa continues, Asuma of island is Yeshlan Tanis Basula. That a blind woman, he married a blind woman, and he expected her to be a Basula. That's a good time. She should have been a Basula. Just because she's blind is not a reason why she shouldn't be a virgin. And the island is also, like the brisa said before, Yeshlan Tanis Basula. Here it's consistent that it says that she is expected to be a basula. That we'll see soon why, but he says that a blind woman, there's no expectation that she should be a basula. We'll see soon why. The Gemara's going to go into all these side points, but right now we're holding on the kasha now that a chareshes and a shota is there tanis basula or not? The Bryce is there tanis before the Bryce said they're expected to be a basula, and if not, there's a taina. Why should not a basula? And here it says chareshes v'ashota and the tanis basula. And this kasha, on Rav Sheshes lo kasha, Rav Gamliel Rav Yeshua. This goes back to the parak before earlier that I spoke about Misharastani Nanasti. That even if she's found not to be a basula, she could say that it's true. I'm not a basula, but it happened after the erison that I was raped after the erison. He's coming to say that you said that you're a basula. She says I was a basula, but at the time that we got erison, the beginning of our marriage, when they did the kedushin, so I was a basula. And even though it's true that now I'm not a basula because I was raped, that's your problem. That like it says, your field was flooded. It's not pasadeyu. So over there's a machlokes if she's believed to say that or not. Rav Gamliel says yes, Rav Yeshua says not. So the Gemara is saying that this Chareshes and Shota, she doesn't have das, she doesn't have seichel to be able to tain and bezdin. But since if she'd be a bas das, she'd be able to say Misharastani and Nasli. So therefore, there's no tainus basulam against her. We tained it for her that maybe she was a basula at the time that she got married, and then something happened to her. That's the Gemara's answer. You can add Amar Sheshes lo kasha or Gamliel Rav Yeshua. That goes back to the if she's believed to say Misharastani and Nasli. But the Gemara says that's only when she says so. And Rav Gamliel says if she says Misharastani and Nasli, she's believed, and then she gets Kesuvos of 200. But here she's not saying anything. This Chareshes for sure that she's not saying anything. Only if she says that I was raped after the erison, so we believe her. But do you see that we should say the time for her if she doesn't say by herself? The answer is yes. If she's a regular woman, bas das, and she doesn't say anything, so then it's a kasha. Why are you not saying anything? But by a cheresh and a shota that she can't talk, she doesn't have seichel, so then we talk for her. And that's the regular cloud the Gemara is going to say now. And yes, we do. We speak up for her. There's a pasuk in Mishlei says open up your mouth, open up your mouth for the person who's dumb. Elam is a dumb, a person who mute, he can't talk. So open up your mouth to speak for him. If you see somebody that can't talk on his own, so help him out, talk for him. So over here, this person is a chareshes v'shota, and she doesn't have das. So if it's possible that if she'd have das, she would say that I was raped, Misharastani and Nasti. So we timed it for her, and therefore she would be able to get. There's no tinus basulim. You can't have tinus against her. This brisa here is going according to Rav Gamliel that says that if she would have tined Misharastani and Nasti, she'd be believed. So therefore, for this chareshes v'shota also ain't tinus basulim. And the other advice that says ain't tinus basulim goes according to Rabbi Yeshua, that even if she were tiny and nasi, she wouldn't be believed. We're out of Yosef Mishum Shemra. We're going to come back to that soon. So far, we did the case. In the case of Adis Brisa, so we're going to finish talking about the Brisa. Here it says, Bogeres ain't latanis besulam. Here's the case Brisa said, Bogeres ain't latanis besulam. Surety. So it says that if a person married a Bulgaris and she doesn't have virginity, so it's not a kasha. It means once the fact that she became 12 and a half already, so that's why she might not have virginity. Not that anybody had related. Just the fact that the body got bigger, got on that. The Bulgaris saying Bulgaris knows when a person marries, and he has relations the first time, and is bleeding, which is expected. But you always have a kasha that what's bleeding is that the separation of the hymen is causing bleeding. But it could be that she's a nida. It could be it's menstrual blood. So always there's an issue when they have relations in the beginning of marriage. Maybe it's dam nida. You can't if it be dam basulim.
You can't according to the Vestas, you can't know.
So it's true that it's not. I think that we might talk about that, but you're choshesh that maybe it's dam nida, a possible chash. That's what we talk about. So, but Rav says Bulgaris knows that a Bulgaria still the first night you could assume that it's dam, even though she's a Bulgaris, means that's what we're talking about now. If she'd be a nara or a ketana, then surely she should have blood. and we could attribute the blood that they had in the first relation, or the first night of relations, we could say that it's related to the hymenal bleeding. But even though she's a Bulgaris, she might not have blood. That's what it seems to say. No, it's not allowed. We should at least the first night, maybe the other nights after the subsequent nights, maybe over there will already be choshesh that is dam neither, because it's not such a big clear. It's not so attributed to the hymen because she's already a Bulgaris. So it's not such a sure that she's bleeding from that. Maybe it's menstrual bleeding, but it says she does at least get the first night. What does that mean? That we do expect her to have blood. That's in contradiction of these two things. It says here, if he finds no blood, we say no time that she's a Bulgarian, she's not expected to have blood. But on the other hand, you say that if she does have blood, that we could attribute it to the dam basulim, that it's virginity blood. So that's a contradiction. Do you assume that the Bulgaris has dam basulim or not? The Gemara says either katan tanis dam mochinami, and b'ma'askina the katan tanis pesa basulah. There are two ways that a person has tanis basulim. When he says I'm married and she's not a basula, that could come one of two reasons: either because he didn't find any blood, or because that it was easy entry, that it was no difficulty penetrating. That sounds like that gives him the impression that the hymen was broken already. So the Gemara says that a Bulgaris, she is expected to have blood. When we said here that ain't tanis basulim, it doesn't mean if she doesn't have blood. If she doesn't have blood, then there is a tanis basulim. How come she doesn't have blood? Even though she's a Bulgaris, she's expected to have blood. But if it's tanis tepesa pasuta, he says that it's easy to penetrate, then it's not a kasha on a Bulgaris. A Bulgaris, the fact that it's wider already, she's mature, she's big, so then it's not a kasha if it's not difficult penetrating. But there still should be blood. So the Gemara answered the kasha. We had a contradiction in the Brisa. One place it says that the Bulgaris is not expected to have blood, it seemed. Another place it says that she is expected to have blood. And the answer is she is expected to have blood. Just that if it's Pesach Pasuach, that it's not difficult to penetrate. Over there, a Bulgaris is not such a time. That could be that because she's a Bulgaris, that's why it's easier to penetrate. The Brisa continue also, we're still in the parentheses. This is a side point. We didn't get back to the Brisa yet. This was the question of the Brisa. A person marries a blind girl, and she's not a basula. Does she say, I expected that she was a virgin? What is this? Just because she's blind, there's a reason why she shouldn't be a virgin? So the Brisa said two opinions. The Tanakh said that as a summa, there is tanis basula. He made Taina, I expected her to be a basula. Why is she not a virgin? And Simcha said in the name of Meir, no, she's not expected to be a basula. Why not? My time with the Simchas. Why not? Why shouldn't she be a basula? That's because she's blind. Because she falls down sometimes, and she's considered like a mukha says that it's not such a kasha why she doesn't have blood, because she when she was a girl, she fell, since she's blind, and therefore she lost her virginity blood. And now that she gets married and she's not a virgin, it's not a kasha. It's not from anybody that had relations with her, it's because she fell. But the Gemara says, all the girls fell down. So that's not a reason why a blind girl fell down. All the girls fall down sometimes. Always we should say the reason why she's not a virgin because she fell down. The Gemara says no. There's a difference. Kula rose and Maris the Iman. Zu and a row of Anamar Lima. All the girls when they fall down, if they do have blood, if the virginity blood came, so then they would go to the mother and say, I fell down and I'm bleeding, and the mother would know that she's not a basul anymore. And when she gets married, they would say to the chassan that she's not a virgin because she fell. But the summa, the blind girl, she doesn't know that she had blood. She fell down like everybody else falls down, and she had virginity blood coming out, and she didn't know. And she didn't tell her mother, so her mother thinks that she's a basula, and that's why Rabbi Meir says that it's not a kasha if she doesn't have dam. Even if she doesn't have blood, we could attribute it that she fell and she didn't realize it, and therefore her mother didn't know that she lost her blood. The Bryce ended off with the fourth case. That if the word seemed to say that if a person married her and then he sent her away because he said that she's not a virgin, and the Yosef Shema means that he even proved that it happened during the Erisin and she was Mazana and she's Chayiv Skila, and Rasa. That surely doesn't make sense that she's Knas and Pito. She surely doesn't get Knas. Taisus explains earlier that the point is not if she gets Skila or not. The Gemara's kasha is going to be that she surely is not considered a virgin. He said that I had relations and she wasn't a virgin. So the husband already said he had relations. Of course, if she gets married again later on, she's not going to, there's no question that she's not a virgin. If someone raped her later on. She's Chayiv Skila means that it says surely assumed. Okay, the words she's Chayiv Skila. Why are you talking about if she gets Knas? She's Chayiv Skila. But the Tais says the Gemara's kasha is that she surely is not considered a virgin because the husband married her. Nothing to do with the Shema. It means that here, again, the Gemara is saying that the usual terminology is not the regular way we talk. Before we said that a Shnios doesn't mean Shnios. Here we're saying that Shema doesn't mean Shema. Here the Mashi Shema usually means the person married and said that Lamasasi Lubit Chapsulim and he says that she was married her and she's not a virgin. That's not what it means over here. Here it means the shemra means that there's bad rumors about her. As a girl, she was bad rumors that she was hanging out with boys, and that's why when someone marries her, he shouldn't expect her to be a basula. Nothing to do with the regular motzi shemra of the Torah. Sheyatza, the word motzi shemra means yatza Allah shemra b'yaldu. So she got a bad name about herself in her youth that she was flirting with boys, and that's why en l'knas v'lo pitu, because the husband should know that, not the husband. When somebody rapes her, it's not assumed that she's a virgin. It's assumed she's not a virgin because she had a shemra. Amr Papa, Shmami, no, high star real. It was soon going to talk about how bad is how bad is that rumor? How much of a rumor was it? Here the Gemara says that rumor, it's assumed she's not a basula anymore. So the Gemara is going to soon talk about it. Amr Papa, Shmami, no, high star real. From here we could deduce that a star that's ria. Ria means that it's something wrong about it. What does Rashi say the word ria? That there was some rumor about it that it's forged. You can't collect with a star with a contract that there's some talk about it that it was a forged document. And the same way over here, that once there's a rumor that the girl is not a basula, so we act on it, we assume she's not a basula, so too, or choshesh, so too, a document which had a rumor that it was forged, you can't collect with it. And the Gemara wants to know what level of rumor it was going around. Hey Chidami, what was the amount of rumor that we're talking about? If the whole thing was that there's a rumor that it's a forged document, that's it. That was the whole rumor, that it's a forged document. So you're going to say by a girl that there's a rumor that she was mazana, that's also enough to say she doesn't get knas. The fact that there's a rumor that she was mazana is enough reason to say that she was not a virgin and there's no knas. You don't. That's because that people talk that she was mazana is not enough reason to assume that it's true. So it's not so. It means if we took the words to mean that there was a bad rumor about her when she was a girl and she probably was mazana, that's not enough. That's wrong. It's a mistake. Just the rumor that she was mazana is not enough reason to be choshesh for it. Ella, they're talking about a serious rumor. Not that just as a rumor, but two people come and they say that she wanted to be mazana with us. She demanded to be mazana. That's already a serious rumor, not just talk. The people themselves come and they testify that she wanted to be mazana. She was trying to seduce us. So that's already a serious rumor. Then you choshesh for, and then later on, if someone raped her, there's no taina anymore because if these people come and said that she tried with us and we sent her away, but she looked for somebody else, and therefore that's a serious rumor. And then if eventually somebody was honest and mafata, she can't say I was a virgin. Probably she was not a virgin. But if so, what's going to be by the case of the documents? The case of the document. That if they asked us, the person of this document, he had approached us and asked us to try to convince us to sign the document falsely. It was a false document, and they said we refused. But probably went to somebody else. That's already a serious rumor. The fact that he actually went out of his way to find false witnesses to sign a document. So if two people come forward and say that he came to us, approached us to sign the false document, then he comes with the document and he has Eidim. It could be that he went to other people that did sign. These two people say we didn't sign. But once there was such a crime that he tried to forge it, attempted forgery, so probably he went again, then he did forge it. But the Gemara still says there's a difference. If you see a woman who's trying to be mizana, and she even approached two men and said she wanted to be mizana with them, and they sent her away and said, no, nothing doing. So then there are no prutzim in the world that she'd go to them. The people, prutzim means somebody who's breached, that they are not, what's the word to say? They're not, I forgot the word, but a person who's tanua. He's not going to be. There are enough. Not enough. There are enough immodest people that she'll be able to find. If she wants to be mizana, and these two people were not available, she'll find somebody else. So therefore, it is true. We understand that the rumor by a woman who was trying to be mizana that she to be successful, and therefore we're not going to trust her virginity. We're not going to think that she's a virgin, and she's not going to be eligible for the knas. If someone was ma'anas and mafata, she can't say I was a virgin. But by forging a document, even though we see this person's trying to get false witnesses, but Am Yisrael doesn't forge documents. It's very hard to get false witnesses. So even though he approached two people and he tried to get them to sign falsely, could we assume, or there's enough reason to be choshesh that he was successful in getting false witnesses? It's very hard to get false witnesses. There are less false witnesses available than people that are willing to be mizana. That's what the Gemara is suggesting. So by the girl who we see she was trying to be mizana, she probably was able to find somebody, and we're able to say that probably she's not a virgin. But I'm going to say the same thing by a person who's trying to get a false witnesses, that if he got false witnesses, it's very hard to get false witnesses. The Gemara says, not that he found witnesses, but since you see he's trying to forge the document, if he wasn't able to get witnesses, he's going to do it himself. He'll learn how to become a forger. He'll be able to copy the signatures and he'll make his own forgery. Not take out other people, but since you see that he's so seriously, he's trying to get a false witnesses, so then we don't trust his document anymore, and we're not going to collect with it. That's the end of that. So the brisa came in Agav over here. Just to what we did today was this brisa that said that there are 4 people that are not eligible to knas. That was the rice or shnias la rice, which was that means not rabbanans, but something more than that. According to other shittas, not like our Mishnah is even chavi krisis are also eligible to knas. Hamama enes we said means because there's a chash that she was beula, she's not a basula anymore, even though we don't know she had relations, but she was married. And within we said it's going according to the shita that holds that mamenes could even be a gedola, because this price holds that a ketana doesn't get knas anyway. Islandess we said is because she's considered a ketana, that's why she doesn't get the knas. And the Osei Mishum Shemra is because there's enough of a rumor to assume that she was Mazana, and therefore that's a strong rumor, not a small rumor. But people came forward and said that she tried to be Mazana with us. So therefore, we don't trust her virginity, and then she's not going to get Knas and Peter. Yashikach, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Yashikach. Dr. Fine, we're looking forward to seeing you.
Yep, in person.
Have a good trip home now.
Catch a nap.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Call to everybody. Thank you.
So who pays the knos when you give to a katana, you give